What's up, guys? It's MB Boxing, and today I'm going to be listing the top 15 middleweight boxers in my opinion. First of all, at number 1, I'm giving it to Saul Canelo Alvarez. His professional record is 53-1, 2 draws with 35 wins by knockout. He is currently the WBA super middleweight champion, as well as the super WBA middleweight world champion. He was supposed to originally be fighting Murata, but since that fight did not work out, he's fighting Billy Joe Sanders on May 2nd, and I did post a video about that, and you guys should go check that out. But Canelo Alvarez, he's a great fighter. I put him at number 1 in my pound-for-pound rankings. And also he's fought the likes of Floyd Mayweather Jr., Triple G, and other fighters. He also knocked out Sergey Kovalev in his last fight. And overall, he's just an excellent fighter. Number 2, I'm giving it to Triple G, Gennady Golovkin. He's 40-1 with 1 draw and 35 by knockout. He's currently the IBF middleweight world champ, winning it in a controversial decision versus Dereyvanchenko. I had Triple G winning. I scored the fight 114-113 for Triple G. It was overall a really close fight. Those rounds could have gone either way, but I just feel like Triple G edged it out with a knockdown. As I said, I scored a draw, but with that knockdown, it was 114-113 to Triple G, and he obviously gets the victory. Triple G was also known for knocking out guys on HBO, where he had his 23-fight knockout streak before he lost it against Daniel Jacobs. But he did drop him a couple times in that fight, and that was, I believe, in 2016 or 2017. I think it was early 2017, that fight. But that was a good fight as well. Most people also thought Daniel Jacobs won that fight. But in my opinion, when Triple G fought Canelo both times, I felt like Triple G edged it out. But I feel like right now, if they were to fight, being how he looked against Dereyvanchenko, I feel like Canelo would take it. But at number 3, I'm giving it to Demetrius Andrade. He's currently the WBO middleweight world champion. He's had a couple of his defenses on DAZN. He's fought a little on HBO. He's the former unified super welterweight world champ, 29-0, 18 wins by knockout from Providence, Rhode Island. He recently got a 9th round knockout versus Luke Keeler. And on that card also, Logan Paul fought Son Gibb. And that fight really showed a lot of talent. No, I'm just joking. I didn't really like that fight. And yeah, to move into some actual talent, Demetrius Andrade. He moved up to middleweight, facing Alantez Fox, winning almost every round in that fight. But there was a controversial knockdown which looked totally like a slip, where he was dropped. I mean, he didn't even basically hit him with anything. It only touched his gloves. It was a body shot. It didn't really look like a knockdown. But otherwise, Andrade, he is a DAZN fighter. He had a couple of defenses on DAZN, like with Arthur Arkavov, where he defended his belt, as well as against Luke Keeler, like I just said. But at number 4, I'm going to give it to Chris Eubank Jr. He's 29-2, 22 by knockout. He's currently the WBA interim middleweight world champ, and he's coming off of a TKO win in round number 2 against Matt Korobov. I mean, it really wasn't a TKO. I think they need to come up with something different if their opponent gets an injury, but it was classified as a TKO. Eubank was really losing bad in round 1. He was presumably stunned by a straight left by Korobov that sort of made him step back. He did lose his balance by getting hit with that shot, but he was lucky in round number 2 where Korobov dislocated his left shoulder, and the fight ended from there, and that's how he won his belt. But he's also a former WBA interim middleweight champion, and he made a defense versus Fedor Chudinov, knocking him out in round 11. Or round 12, it was really close to the end of the fight, and Eubank was beating him up all night and got the knockout. He also faced off against George Groves and Billy Joe Sanders, losing both fight by decision. One of them was in the World Boxing Super Series against George Groves, and that was a great fight. And against Billy Joe Sanders, I believe it was a split decision, but it was also a close fight as well. And at number 5, I'm giving it to Jermall Charlo. He's undefeated, 33-0, 22 by way of knockout. He's the WBC middleweight world champ. There's a lot to say about him. He recently defended his belt against Dennis Hogan, knocking him out, I believe, in the 9th round. He feinted him, then landed a hook, making Dennis Hogan creep back into the super welterweight ranks. After trying his hand at a middleweight title, he got completely obliterated, dropped in round 4, and then dropped in round 9 and finished. But Jermall Charlo also, I'd say, got exposed against Matt Korobov, where I had Korobov winning, and so did a lot of the public. And he did hurt Korobov in round 12. Charlo came on at the end of the fight, but Korobov was winning definitely from round 1 to round 7, I'd say. And then Charlo took over the last 5 rounds. But Charlo did get exposed in that fight, getting countered by Korobov's left a lot. And I feel like the judges did rob Korobov. But if I'm going to make this list, I got to give it to the man who won and who has the belt. Also, he has a better resume, so I do got to give it to him. He's also the former IBF super welterweight champ. And at number 6, I'm giving it to Sergey Dereyvanchenko. Although his record may not seem great, he's an excellent fighter. He's 13-2 with 10 wins by knockout. He had his first title shot against Daniel Jacobs, where he lost a razor-thin decision. I thought he won that fight. He was dropped in that fight, but I scored a 114-113 for Dereyvanchenko. But as you can see, it was a matchroom card, and they did give it to Jacobs, although I feel like Dereyvanchenko edged it out. But against Triple G, he put up a great fight, although he got dropped in round 1. I said before I thought he lost that fight, but many people felt that Dereyvanchenko won. So I cannot complain about your opinion if you think he won, because it was an extremely close fight, as he was the first ever fighter to ever pressure Triple G like that, landing his combos throughout the mid-rounds, and it was overall an excellent fight, one of the best of 2019. But at number 7, I'm giving it to Murata. He's 16-2, 13 by knockout. He is the WBA regular middleweight world champ. He's from Japan. He won his belt against Hassan Endam, lost it against Rob Brant, then lost it again against Hassan Endam. Then he regained it from both fighters, knocking Brant out. And in his first fight, it was a close unanimous decision loss. And against Endam, most people thought Murata won, but they edged it out to Endam. But I think Murata's a good fighter. He had an excellent amateur background. He has good power. He's a good style. I like him. And at number 8, I'm giving it to Jaime Munguia, 35-0 with 28 by knockout. Some people may see him higher on this list, but I don't, since his only opportunity at middleweight, I saw him against Gary Spike O'Sullivan, where he took the fight a little bit too late. He did get caught from Gary Sullivan's hooks, but Munguia did look pretty good. He was winning the fight. He did get a knockout victory, I believe it was in round 11. But he still got the job done, knocking out Sullivan in his middleweight debut. And now he's in the top 5 in the WBO, I believe, and in the WBC in the middleweight rankings. And he's also the former WBO super welterweight champ, knocking out Saddam Ali to win his belt. But overall, he's an excellent fighter, and I just got to give it to him. And at number 9, I'm giving it to Liam Smith, 29-2, 1 draw with 16 wins by knockout. He's the former WBO super welterweight champion, or the interim WBO super welterweight champion. His biggest fights were definitely against Jaime Munguia, where he lost. He also fought Liam Williams twice, which most people thought were controversial. In the first fight, they thought Liam Williams won by decision. And in the second, they believed an accidental headbutt should have went to the scorecards for a technical decision. But in both fights, officially ruled Liam Smith the winner. So I got to give it to him. And I recently saw him fight on DAZN on the January 30th card with Luke Keeler, I believe it was, or it was on an earlier DAZN card. But overall, he looked pretty good. He got a decision win, and Boxrec, I believe, has him at number 10, I believe, or number 11. I think he should be there, as I have him here in the top 15. As I said before, he's a good boxer. And now up next, I'm giving it to number 10, Liam Williams. He's 22-2, 17 by way of knockout. His last fight was a WBO eliminator against Alantez Fox, where he stopped him in round 5, winning every single round, obliterating him. So he's definitely in a shot for a WBO title, but I'll probably have to do a final eliminator first. I think he's a great fighter. He has good power. And he moved up from super welterweight, and he brought his power with him. And I feel like he'll definitely do good if he challenges for a world title. I'm not sure if he'll beat any of the champions, but he'll definitely put up a good fight. Or he could. He could get a victory, but we'll see. Time will tell. And at number 11, I'm giving it to Rob Brant. He's 25-2. He has 17 wins by knockout. One of his defeats was in the super middleweight World Boxing Super Series, where he lost the decision to Jürgen Brammer, the German veteran. And I'm not sure if it was a close fight. I didn't really watch it. I saw some highlights of the fight. It didn't look too great. The fight was a couple years ago when they started the super middleweight tournament. And yeah, he lost that fight, but he bounced back, winning the WBA world title, beating Hayata Murata by decision. And then in his first defense, he lost by knockout against Murata in their rematch in Japan in the second round. I can't really say a lot about him except that he's the former WBA world champ and he's a decent fighter. And at number 12, most people would probably see this as a shocker because Boxrec has him about 35 in the rankings. But I think his skill, his amateur background, and who he's fought is going to put him here. I'm not sure if you guys will agree with me, but I'm putting Matt Korobov at number 12. He's 28-3, 1 draw with 14 by way of knockout. He did lose to Eubank, Charlo in his fights, and Andy Lee. But the Charlo fight was very controversial, and I believe that after that fight happened, I thought he should have been the WBC middleweight champion. I think they did rob him of that fight, and he basically showed his skill in both the Eubank and Charlo fight, dodging a lot of their shots, landing his counter left, showing his Russian amateur skills, and I think he's an excellent fighter. He also had a win over Jose Uskansky when Uskansky was younger and more in his prime. He dropped him twice in that fight. That fight was on HBO night. And I believe that fight was in Brooklyn a couple years back. But then he challenged for the WBO title, lost by TKO in the 6th round to Andy Lee. And his loss versus Eubank was basically an unlucky turn of events where he dislocated his left shoulder while extending it, throwing a left hand. And number 13, I'm giving it to Jeff Horn from Australia. He's 20-2, 13 by knockout. When you get to about 11th best middleweight, there's not really a lot. Although BoxRec has him at number 9, I don't really see that. I don't think he's that great of a fighter as people say him to be. He did beat Manny Pacquiao on paper. I don't think he beat him. I thought Pacquiao won that fight, rightfully, but he was the former WBO welterweight champ. As I said, he's 22. He's coming off of a revenge knockout win over Michael Zerafa in their rematch. In the first fight, he lost by KO, and he also lost by KO to WBO welterweight champ when he was a welterweight to Terrence Crawford. And next, at number 14, I'm giving it to Michael Zerafa, his rival. He's 27-4, 16 by knockout. I think he's a decent fighter, even though his last fight was to Jeff Horn, as I said before. And then before that, he won against Jeff Horn in their first fight by knockout. He also has a loss to Kell Brook, who recently had his comeback fight against Mark DeLuca, knocking him out in round 7. Go check that video out. And yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about him. I've only saw him a couple times, like when he fought Kell Brook and Jeff Horn. But finally, at number 15, I'm giving it to what may surprise you. There wasn't a lot to choose from. Maybe I could have put Hugo Centeno in there or somebody else, but I'm going to give it to 21-0 with 5 wins by knockout. IBF mandatory for Triple G. Kamil Szremeta from Poland. As I said, he's 21-0. Only has 5 wins by knockout, but his knockout wins were against his best opponents. Like in his last fight, he knocked out Oscar Cortez, who was 27-4 at the time, and he knocked out Alessandro Gotti, who's fought in DAZN Italy, or Matchroom Italy, and he's the EBU middleweight champion, or I believe he vacanized his belt. But I think he's got decent skill. He may not be the biggest puncher, but I feel like he could use his skill against better fighters in the division. I would want to see a step up before I start putting him higher up in the ranks, but overall I think he's a decent fighter.